Good evening, everyone, and a very, very warm welcome to all our esteemed panelists, participants who have joined us from across the country and across the globe. Thank you for being with us today on this exciting day of the summit. To commence with today's journey of ideas and inspiration, let us pause for a moment of stillness and grounding. Let us begin with a digital prayer, a moment to embrace positivity and to set the tone for learning, collaboration, and growth.
शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरु त्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तु ते.
As we set the stage for this meaningful day, we pause to honor the memory of our beloved mentor, Mr. Ranji Chani, a pillar of wisdom, compassion, and integrity. His enduring vision continues to shape every corner of Atlas. His legacy lives on every team this institution nurtures, and it is with deep gratitude that we now present this heartfelt tribute. Before we dive into the sessions lined up for today, here are a few general instructions to help you make the most of this experience. Please use the Q&A box to post your questions during the speaker sessions. Our moderators will pick up selected questions to be answered live. At the end of each session, we will share a feedback form link in the chat. Kindly fill it to receive your e-certificate. All certificates will be emailed post the summit to all participants who submit their forms. We hope you enjoy these sessions filled with rich insights, new perspectives, and engaging discussions. Now that we are familiar with the guidelines for the day, let us take a moment to understand the institution that brings us all together, Atlas Skill Tech University. Atlas University, located in Mumbai, India's first urban multidisciplinary university dedicated to preparing the youth for Industry 4.0, with schools in design, management, technology, and law. Atlas is a hub of futuristic learning and innovation. Backed by global academic partnerships, strong corporate linkages, and industry integrated pedagogy, we empower students with a mindset to lead the fast changing world. Atlas is not just an academic institution, it is a launchpad for ideas, ventures, careers, and impact. With this spirit of innovation and global outlook, Atlas proudly presents its flagship academic event, AAROHAN, a confluence of ideas, research, and transformative dialogue. This summit is a flagship initiative by the Student Research and Development Cell of Atlas Skill Tech University. It is a platform that brings together academicians, researchers, industry experts, students to discuss, debate, design future-ready business models. With multiple paper presentation tracks, keynote addresses, panel discussions, the summit aims to ignite conversations that drive innovation and sustainable development in the 21st century. To formally inaugurate this inspiring gathering, it is my honor and privilege to invite a leader whose vision has been the cornerstone of Atlas's journey, our Chancellor and founding President, Dr. Indu Shahani. Dr. Shahani has been the former Sheriff of Mumbai and a globally respected academic leader. Her commitment to excellence in education and youth empowerment continues to inspire us every single day. Ma'am, kindly share your thoughts with us.
Thank you so much. And it's indeed a privilege today to be here for Arohan 3.4, and my heartiest congratulations to the entire team which has been working tirelessly to bring this up here today, and led by, of course, our leader here, Varsha. And I'm happy to see so many of you from different parts of the world, and some of my, our old friends. Ian, great to see you. And of course, all of you who have been here, Professor Nivoki, Nipkovi, have you been here? And Professor Swin Travis, you've been here too. So it's really wonderful. And of course, Harpreet Sarin, he's here with us almost every time. So great to see you all. And I must say that today it's with great joy and pride that I welcome you all to AAROHAN 3.0 Global Innovation Technology Summit, the third edition of our annual Global Summit, hosted by Student Research Development Cell, which really comprises of some enthusiastic and exciting students of the Atlas Skill Tech University. This year's summit, as you all know, is themed as Vision 2050, Catalyzing Innovation and Transformation, a powerful call to action that reflects our shared responsibility to shape the future through bold thinking, disruptive research, and purposeful innovation. As we stand on the threshold of an era defined by AI, quantum computing, climate crisis, biotechnology, space exploration, and reshaping of human identity itself, we must ask, what kind of future are we creating? And what kind of future do we want? I am sure a large number of paper discussions you will witness will in this summit, you will see reflect this theme and this aspiration to bring the change. I extend heartfelt thanks to our dynamic faculty, the organizing committee, our research scholars, and all our contributors who have brought this event to life. Your commitment makes Arohan not just an event, but a mission. On a personal note, today, Arohan being dedicated to Mr. Shahani is indeed something that the family is very grateful to, because he would never miss Arohan no matter what, even if he was not too well. And I think he always encouraged Varsha to carry on this wonderful summit that she always organized. To all my participants and speakers, this is your moment to spark dialogue, share disruptive ideas, and build bridges across disciplines and geographies. Speak with confidence, listen with openness, and above all, let's keep pushing the boundaries together. Let Arohan 3.0 not only be the rise of knowledge, but also the rise of community, deeply committed to a better tomorrow. Wishing you all an engaging, inspiring, and impactful summit. Wish you all the best, and we look forward to the summit, and I declare the summit open.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that wonderful, inspiring start. Continuing the spirit of encouragement, we now invite another guiding force of our university, our Pro Vice Chancellor, Hina Thakkar ma'am, the pillar of our university. Hina ma'am is a highly experienced academician and one of the three teachers who were instrumental in the formation of our university. Above all, she's a fantastic human being, always supporting, encouraging, and guiding all of us. Requesting ma'am to take us through the journey of Arohan.
Thank you, Dr. Sadaf. Distinguished members on the panel, and Dr. Indu Shahani, my mentor, my friend, Dr. Varsha Agarwal, and all the participants and members who are attending the summit inaugural. A warm, warm welcome to all of you. It's indeed a pleasure to take you all through the 3 years journey and looking forward to many, many more years of Arohan, raising its bar with each year. I'd like to spend half a minute acknowledging the efforts of all people who have worked in bringing Arohan to where it is today. Arohan has been a global summit series organized, as was mentioned by Dr. Sadaf Hashmi a little while ago, by the Student Research and Development Cell of Atlas Kiltech University. Its mentor, our research director, Dr. Varsha Agarwal, and the student president of the first 2 years, Mr. Het Mehta. I'm not sure if he's present, but Het, if you're listening to me, thank you for pioneering this. And the current president, Miss Khushi Doshi. Is she present on the group? Can we please get our camera on? And Khushi, thank you for, Khushi, are you there? The SRDC president, who has been instrumental in bringing this Arohan 3.0 under the mentorship of Dr. Varsha Agarwal. As mentioned by Dr. Hashmi, this edition focuses on distinct themes and brings together academicians, researchers, students, and industry practitioners. Research paper presentations form an integral part of this 5-day summit. Keynote sessions, panel discussions, and best paper awards are also an integral part of this summit. There are some very interesting workshops, and there are a whole lot of networking opportunities that this summit provides. As was requested, I will take you through the 3 years journey of Arohan. Arohan began in the year 2023, where the theme was Sustainable Ideas for Business in New Normal. The summit aimed to explore how business models could be revamped and reimagined following changing business dynamics after the pandemic. Sessions were conducted by prominent speakers such as Mr. Martin Roll, Dr. Aline Sommers, Mr. Sunil Tulsiani, Dr. David Akhar, Dr. Indu Shahani, Dr. Rishikant Krishnan, and the guru of world marketing sector, Dr. Philip Kotler. It also featured a research workshop by Dr. Rahat Munir. There were track presentations and international panel discussions on sustainable ideas for business in the new normal. In the second year, Arohan 2024 aimed at the theme of sustainable futures, integrating ESG principles for global transformation. That edition focused on the profound evolution of risk and opportunity landscapes for corporates, emphasizing environmental, social, and governance metrics as critical evaluation parameters in a world shaped by technological disruptions, health crises, and climate changes. Some of the notable speakers in our Arohan 2024 included Dr. Marshall Goldsmith, who is world's #1 executive coach, Dr. Pankaj Mittal, who is the Secretary General of Association of Indian Universities, and Dr. Justin Paul, highly cited researcher in business and economics. And today, here we are launching Arohan 2025 Global Innovation and Technology Summit with its vision 2050, catalyzing innovation and transformation. This summit is dedicated to exploring the transformative power of innovation in shaping a sustainable, and technologically advanced future. It focuses on achieving UN's Sustainable Development Goals by 2050. The summit will have some very prominent speakers on innovation and technology. There are multifaceted challenges and opportunities presented in innovation and technology, particularly how they can drive societal, economic, and environmental transformations. The presentation tracks will include topics on future of work, human-centric AI, climate justice, blockchain, quantum computing, sustainable engineering, healthcare engineering, and robotics, among others. Some of the notable speakers are Dr. Mark Lennon, Dr. Philip Damasceno, Dr. Vicky Crittenden, who's an author, editor, and award-winning professor of marketing, and Danilo Talanskas, managing director of Otis Elevator Company. A word of thanks to the organizers for having brought in such luminaries to be present for this inaugural and to be present with us for the next 5 days. And a big thank you to the students of Research Development Cell of Atlas Skilltech University. As I said earlier, they keep raising the bar, getting better each year and bringing in more and more participation year on year. Here is more power to all of you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Hina ma'am, for enlightening us through this enriching journey that Arohan has gone through. It's now time to hear from the engine behind the summit. Please join me in welcoming our summit convener, Dr. Varsha Agarwal. Dr. Varsha Agarwal is the Director of Doctoral Program and Research Promotions and an Associate Professor at Atlas Skilltech University. Her dedication, perseverance, and vision has made this summit possible. We are truly grateful for her tireless efforts. Dr. Varsha Agarwal, request you to share your thoughts with us.
Thank you, Dr. Sada. The best way to predict the future is to create it, said Dr. Peter F. Drucker. Good evening, everyone. It is my privilege to welcome you to Arohan 3.0 Global Innovation and Technology Summit. Every generation inherits a future it did not design, but has the power to transform. Arohan 3.0 is not just a summit, it is a shared responsibility to imagine, innovate, and act. Organized by the Student Research and Development Cell of Atlas Skilltech University, Mumbai, in collaboration with the University of Bristol, RMIT University, University of Sussex, and Parsons School of Design, the New School, and supported by Atlantis Press, Springer Nature. This summit exemplifies the power of global collaboration. This year's edition is our most ambitious yet. We received 355 abstracts, shortlisted 293 for presentations, and we are proud to have participation from 36 countries, a testament to leading institutions including the University of Illinois, Fuqua Business School, ITM Skills University, India, Pennsylvania University, Excelsior College. We have 18 distinct speakers, which shows Arohan's growing global impact. I extend my gratitude to our leadership, organizing team, session chairs. Most importantly, I thank all participants. Your curiosity and creativity make Arohan not just an event, but a movement. As convener, I believe Arohan 3.0 will ignite conversations and collaborations that bring us closer to Vision 2050. Let us make these 4 days truly transformative. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Varsha, for that comprehensive overview of Arohan 3.0. And as we move ahead, let us take a moment to acknowledge the leadership team of Atlas, whose support has shaped this summit into reality. Dr. Parag Amin, the Registrar of Atlas Skilltech University, we extend a very warm welcome to you as well. We would also like to warmly welcome all our panel members for today's session. We are thrilled to have your presence and we look forward to your valuable insights. It's now time to begin with the panel discussion, the most awaited. The session will be moderated by Professor Aditya Kashyap. Aditya Kashyap is an economist by training with over 8 years of experience in academia. Serves as the Director of Academic Excellence and Transdisciplinary Learning at Atlas Skilltech University, where he leads strategic initiatives that bridge disciplines and drive innovation in higher education. Before transitioning into academia, Aditya Kashyap has also worked with Ernst& Young and Cargill, gaining valuable industry experience in financial analysis and consulting. His academic interests span game theory, applied statistics, development economics, with a focus on remittances and their impact on economic growth. Aditya is passionate about designing meaningful learning experiences and fostering global conversations at the intersection of innovation, policy, and education. He brings with him vast experience in business, branding, and innovation strategy. It's my privilege to hand over this session in the able hands of Professor Aditya Kashyap. Over to you, Aditya, and we open for the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sadaf. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon to everyone joining us from different corners of the world. I'm Aditya, and I have the great privilege of moderating today's thought-provoking panel on global perspectives on innovation, creativity, and technology for a transformative future. As part of AAROHAN 3.0, the Global Innovation and Technology Summit hosted by Atlas Skilltech University. This happens to be our third edition that we are hosting AAROHAN for the past 3 consecutive years. We are also grateful to our institutional partners, including RMIT, University of Bristol, University of Sussex, and Parsons Schools of Design, the New School. As we navigate an era marked by disruption, digitization, and the rapid redefinition of what's possible, this conversation couldn't be more relevant. Our goal today is to explore how innovation and creativity, when driven by purpose and inclusivity, can reshape our future for the better. We have an extraordinary panel of global thought leaders who bring deep expertise from across technology, policy, design, and education. Let me introduce them briefly. First, we are honored to welcome Dr. Ian T. Nabney, professor at the University of Bristol, a leading voice in data science and machine learning, especially around responsible AI and ethical system design. Professor Ian is a leading expert in machine learning and data science with over 25 years of experience across academia and industry. Currently Associate Dean at the University of Bristol, his work has spanned across AI applications in healthcare, aerospace, and manufacturing, with notable contributions like the NetLab Toolbox and collaborations with companies such as Rolls-Royce and Pfizer. We also have with us Dr. Maziar Nikovi from the University of Sussex, who brings deep insight into 5G, 6G, and the global telecom space, having worked extensively across industry and academia. Professor Maziar is a telecom and wireless innovation expert, currently at the University of Sussex, where he leads cutting-edge research in 5G, 6G, and spectrum technologies. Formerly head of 5G at Samsung Europe, he has over 200 publications with 23 patents and advises several global telecom and tech networks. From New York, we are joined by Professor Sven Travis, a pioneering educator from Parsons School of Design, the New School, whose work spans digital design, transdisciplinary learning, and future-focused pedagogy. Professor Sven is a pioneer in digital design education with over 3 decades at Parsons, where he founded the design and technology programs. His work spans computational media, machine learning, and global partnerships in China. A visionary educator, he champions interdisciplinary ecosystems that blend design, tech, and social innovation. And finally, we are delighted to welcome Professor Harpreet Sareen, also from Parsons, whose creative and scientific explorations blend nature, design, and technology, challenging our very ideas of innovation and material intelligence. Professor Harpreet is a researcher and educator at Parsons, working at the intersection of biology, electronics, and design. A graduate of the MIT Media Lab, he pioneers convergent design developing bionic materials and ecological interfaces. His work spans major research labs, museums, and global platforms like TEDx, SXSW, and Ars Electronica. A very warm welcome to each one of you. We'll get started with the panel discussion. I'll go around with asking each one of you a question with an opening statement, and then we can take questions from the viewers online through the chat box. I would like to start with Dr. Ian. Your question is, how do you envision the responsible and ethical use of AI and data science shaping a transformative future, particularly in terms of societal well-being and global equity? Over to you, Professor Ian.
Thank you very much, Aditya. And apologies for not having the obligatory background, but not only was it reversed left to right, which is not so bad, but actually it was reversed in color as well. So I look like a Doctor Who villain or something, or monster. Anyway, so AI. Not all of AI is new. I think that's one thing that's really worth pointing out, because many of the things I'm going to talk about in terms of the contribution to society have actually been around pre-ChatGPT. So there was AI and effective AI at that before ChatGPT. Since the mid-1980s, machine learning has been a real science. Dave Mackay linked artificial neural networks to statistical pattern recognition, and that was the start of it being a proper statistical science. The biggest changes recently, perhaps in the last 5 to 10 years, have been in terms of scale, both cloud computing and GPUs, though they were actually prefigured by array processors in the late 1970s. And key also representation. So classical AI could manage very, very small amounts of information and reason with it. And neural networks were good for bigger data sets, but they were basically dealing with numbers. But the recent introduction of transformers are now allowed neural networks to work at large scale, but also to work with a much wider range of data types. And that's why we've seen the big explosion in interest in AI in the past few years. I think the other two things I would add in terms of the big changes are there's a much more human-like interaction. If you think of ChatGPT or copilots and so on, you can write text as if you were talking to somebody and get some text back that sounds like a response that somebody might make. And also the generative side, the idea that you can generate things, not just predict or classify something that already exists. But at the heart, there's still the old heart, which is these are interpolating machines. So they take in data, they learn from the data, and they interpolate, they estimate in between the gaps of what they've seen before to give you what they think is a reasonable answer. And that's both their power and their limitation. So in terms of societal well-being, it's how you use the tool. I think often that people in a transition between technologies often get the best of both worlds. If you think of something like, say, Google Maps, I learned to read maps when I was young. I used to go hill walking, and I can visualize a set of contours as a physical representation, but I can also use Google Maps. I think people educated nowadays probably would find it a lot harder to have that extra skill. And so we've really got to think about, are we trying to do skill replacement or skill enhancement? And I would certainly encourage people to use it in the enhancement way rather than the replacement way, to always be skeptical and always review what you hear from an AI. It's no different from what you would do from looking up something in Wikipedia. You always have to be reflective about it. So what things are going to be coming our way? Well, much more personalization. For example, healthcare is the obvious example where we'll be able to produce healthcare solutions that are much more individual. There'll be embodied AI, so robotics for care, for delivery, social robotics. Again, something that predates ChatGPT. There is already embedded AI. So if you think of computer vision, that's a piece of embedded AI. You think about cars that automatically park. They've been around for quite a long time. They are using AI tools already. And then finally, for what I think many people on the call will be interested in is what tasks will they use personally to use AI for? And clearly, any task that involves verbal digital repetition or digital manipulation is something where AI can play a part and might be considered at risk or potentially to be enhanced if we can find out the best way to work with it. So I said that they were interpolating machines. What that means in terms of, say, text is that if you have what we call boilerplate text, so you've got standard policies or standard job descriptions, an AI will produce a pretty good first draft for you very quickly that you can then refine. If you look at programming, a lot of boilerplate code that's really relatively easy to produce, is already being written by AI. So Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, in April this year, said that about 20 to 30% of code in Microsoft's repositories is already being written by AI. And there's a similar figure for Google. Okay, so that's the sort of thing that we might be able to get from AI. What about the other side of it, which is the global equity? Clearly, there's a difference between can and should. And here, we have to think very carefully, should we be doing things? Should we be using AI for certain things? And that, again, is not new. The AI, but also database models, algorithmic decision-making has been around for quite a few years now. And we are still trying to get to grips with, for example, both the ethics of it, but also embodying those ethics in regulatory frameworks, which is particularly challenging given the very international nature of organizations that use these technologies. There's a lot of jurisdiction challenges. So where would you sue a company for breaking the law? But also competition between national governments to try and be the natural home for AI companies means that there's a tension between ethical regulation and light touch regulation that is to encourage developers to come to that country. And I think the biggest issue of all is liability. Again, I would say it's nothing new, but the question is, what happens if someone takes an AI answer, does something with it, and something goes wrong? Where does the responsibility lie? And that is really hard to pin down. Is it the people who programmed the algorithm? Is it the people who sold it? Is it the original data? And so on. So auditing by humans is really critical. That means people being reflective and critical of what they get from AI tools. So I'd like, and I think the other thing that's obviously very, very key to this is the question of where the data comes from. So there's often exploitation in the gathering of data. There's bias in the gathering of data. There's exploitation also of IP generators. So the reason we have these great text models is that people have folded in lots and lots of writing by lots and lots of people around the world and use that in the data set and not recompensed anyone whose writing was originally used. And there's a question of sustainability. So building your own very large model takes a lot of power, takes a lot of water, takes a lot of natural resources, and we should be very careful about how we do that. So I'd like to encourage everybody to become a creative director, not just an executor, to really use AI in a mindful way, but also we need to get these other frameworks up and running so that people can have the guardrails to enable them to use it ethically and responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the key takeaways over there was really putting down a foundation, which is the question about can and should AI. And I'm going to circle back to that question maybe once everyone's done with one round of questioning. I will move on to Dr. Meziar. With your deep involvement in 5G and emerging technologies, how do you see connectivity reshaping the innovation landscape across both developed and developing economies?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone here. It's a great pleasure to be part of this important conversation. Now, when it comes to connectivity, and I would say advanced connectivity also, particularly through the rollout of 5G and the evolution that we are now seeing towards 6G, this is fundamentally reshaping the innovation landscape in both developed and developing countries and large countries which have elements of both. Now, in developed economics, we are witnessing the rise of intelligent edge computing, AI-driven networks. Communication networks are highly complex systems, and so AI is being increasingly used to automate the operation of these very complex systems. So we don't, we can enjoy our connectivity everywhere, and there are no outages and so on. And of course, immersive applications such as augmented reality, virtual reality, for example, for education and medical application, and also coming in metaverse, and at some stage holographic communication is something that 6G is probably brings us to us. Now, beside that, and this was one of the key missions of 5G, is 5G is not about voice, video, and data. It's about really digitalization of and transformation of sectors such as manufacturing, healthcare, automotive, and mobility. And this is really driving the shift. So we have Industry 4.0 now. This is driving towards in Industry 5.0, actually, where we have human-centric and sustainable innovation will be the key. Moving to developing economics. Now, a few years ago, I was for example, in Lagos in Nigeria, and a very important tech conference. And I'd witnessed this in first hand, is that in developing economics, advanced wireless technologies, in particular 5G, but also with satellite enabled connectivity being integral part of 5G and 6G, they are acting as leapfrogging technologies. That means that while in the past it was very difficult to get connectivity, for example, to remote and rural areas, these technologies now offer a historical opportunity to bypass legacy infrastructure, because 5G, a technology called fixed wireless access that I was delighted to be part of developing, even I was at Samsung, enables fiber-like connectivity using wireless technologies. And that basically is an enormous enabler to bridge the digital divide. And that can empower entrepreneurships, for example, in rural communities, digital education, of course, digital remote education, and access to essential services which were not available previously to communities in health, in fintech, macro payment, macroeconomics, and so on. Now, but what is really vital, and here comes, so my lab is 6G Net Zero Lab, actually, so is that obviously ICT as a whole at the moment consumes about 1.5% of CO2 emission. Communication technologies contribute about 0.25 at the moment. These technologies are becoming more energy efficient. In fact, by switching from 4G to 5G, you get about 90% gain in energy efficiency. But the amount of data that we are consuming, and a lot of this also is coming from AI, for example, is exponentially increasing. And hence, it's vital, absolutely vital, that we design our 6G networks, and that's what we're doing, for example, that 6G lab, with sustainability in mind. So a minimum energy consumption and other approaches. At the same time, inclusivity is also extremely important. Recognizing that connectivity is not just about speed or capacity. Even in the UK, we witnessed that kind of between rural areas and urban areas, and we need to bridge this gap, especially when it goes towards 5G and 6G. So it's really about minimum participation in global economy, and that is possible if you have a ubiquitous coverage, and that comes through integration of 5G and satellite system into one large network. And to achieve that, we need a global partnerships, as well as localized innovation ecosystem, and an ethical framework, sustainable framework. Now, I'm very pleased also that when it comes to 6G, now the requirement and the key technologies for 6G are defined by International Telecommunication Union, because it's a global standard. And in my role as chair of UK Telecom Innovation Network, we look across the world in for R&D. And India is, in fact, very much at the forefront of has been defining the ITU's requirements and use case for 5G, which I think has helped to bring in more things such as ubiquitous coverage and sustainability into this. So I think I will stop at this stage and of course happy to join the discussion later. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. I think one of the key themes you really brought out over here while we are talking about an interconnected world is the true focus on sustainability and inclusivity, which makes a lot of meaningful impact rather than just making a simple impact, which we can again circle back towards the end of the questions. Moving on to Professor Swen. In a world dominated by tech, how can design and creative education stay at the forefront of shaping ethical and human-centered innovation?
Hi, thanks. Good question. I think let me describe very briefly our approach at Parsons. In this case, Harpreet and my program is called Design and Technology. So this is a question that's very central to our work and the way we approach working with young designers. The creative process is utterly central to the way we teach about technology. And part of that is getting students to understand that having hands-on experience with technology and with using aspects of technology in the fabrication process is absolutely critical in their understanding of what technology can do. Design and Technology, when it was founded almost 30 years ago now, tended to look at many programs surrounding it as not hands-on enough. And we've worked very hard over the decades to make sure that we remained very hands-on. We believe strongly that working with technology, building things, prototyping projects to the extent that designers are able to test and then iterate them, all of this changes the way designers think. We have a lot of students who come into our programs and aren't interested in coding or building physical things, and we do our best to change their attitude. Most find that when they do try these approaches, writing their own code or at least formulating code, I'll get to AI in a minute, in a way that they can actually run and test projects, building physical constructs, working with different forms like biological substrates to actually be able to experiment in the physical world. Many students find that they end up with a whole new array of ideas. And I'm going to throw out two quick examples of this that are actually real examples from Parsons Design and Technology over the past several years. The first is quantum computing. We've been working with quantum primarily, although not only, but primarily with IBM over the past several years. And it serves as a very good example of how I would answer this question. Quantum well, let me just say, it is rare for designers to get access to technology that is this early in the development stage. A lot of people ask us, well, what are you doing with quantum? What are you making? What are you building? And the answer varies, but I think it's early enough that the first thing I would say is it's very difficult to build tangible devices, tangible projects with quantum right now. But at the same time, it's given our designers access to technology early enough that we can begin to shape some of the ethical issues and hopefully influence how they are dealt with. It's also a way of looking at where a technology like quantum computing is applied when we look at humanity and when we look across the board at industry tendencies to take a technology like this and use it for basically just simply generating more money, when in fact there are a wide variety of outcomes that could have highly beneficial results for humanity, whether they are medical, whether they are social, etc. So early access to technology by designers, again, changes the way that they may think about how technologies are being used, but also allows influence on a variety of fronts that involve ethics and involve humanitarian considerations. I would say we're dealing with the same issue as we look at how our students use technologies like machine learning or large language models. Anyone in the academy has experienced the chaos that has been caused by these technologies really across the board. The tendencies of universities to want to make rules about how these technologies are used, and the uncertainty of which ideas that students are presenting are coming from their own thought process or simply lifted from, Chat GPT or whatever. We're suffering all the same issues at Parsons, and I believe very strongly that one of the solutions here is to get students to engage with these technologies early and often, if they choose to integrate them as part of their creative process, to do so in a way that is ethical, that does focus on the possible humanitarian outcomes, but yet also requires them to acknowledge the use of the technologies, and as goes through my entire answer here, to really come to a deep understanding of the most effective ways of using these technologies in collaboration with their own creativity. And this last point is really critical. We have too many students who are just simply taking the output of machine learning or of large language models and putting them forward as answers to creative problems or challenges. We strongly believe in the idea of human AI collaboration, and that's at the very foundation of an answer to the question I've been asked. So to conclude, to be brief, engaging technologies early and often in the design process, we think helps come to a deeper understanding of how they can be used ethically and in support of humanity. And we also think this early embrace changes the entire creative process and places an emphasis on using technology in these more positive ways. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the key takeaways over here was really focusing on human AI collaboration. I think that's the essence of what we are trying to get to, merging design, technology, and also talking about education. All right, moving on to Professor Harpreet. Your work merges biology, design, and technology. And how can interdisciplinary creative practices help us reimagine a more sustainable and regenerative future?
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this panel as well. It's a pleasure to be here. I work at Parsons at the Program of Design and Technology. And as Sven mentioned, there are very little boundaries between the fields, and quite often the work is always in a little bit of state of flux by its very nature, because we are working with technologies that are not quite fully developed yet, and we are working with technologies that don't have the necessary endpoints to use like a very sort of commercially developed technology. So I work alongside fantastic colleagues like Sven, who we just heard from, and much of what I'll say will be building upon what is already mentioned. You mentioned, biology, design, technology. How do they come together? I will probably just take two examples that sort of epitomizes my response to this. I teach a class at Parsons called the Biodesign Challenge, the international finale of which is also held at Parsons in New York City. And part of it is also organized in collaboration with the Museum of Modern Art. A couple of years ago, we had a student from Vietnam, Nguyen Tran, who enrolled actually in the fashion design program. She came to this class at Design Technology, mentioning that the town that she comes from has leather production in the town, which is very toxic, and she would like to do something about it. Yuyan comes up with a recipe that mixes food waste, such as shrimp shells, coffee, and some kind of binders, such as glycerine, and ends up creating a bio leather that is waterproof, that is sustainable to produce, and does not need, the same kind of sources that we know of leather. So she now runs a company in Brooklyn called Tomtex, and this is funded by the top incubators. And the reason I'm using this as an example is this blending of fashion design, material science, and to some extent biotechnology demonstrates the blending of the fields where the new solutions really are. And I believe for a long time we have been excited about digital technologies. The academic focus or the industry's focus has been for too long on exclusively on digital technologies. But after about 25 to 30 years of this, I believe a lot of institutions are coming to realization that the problems of the world are far more complex, they're far more multifaceted, which require multiple fields to come together. We don't just need new interfaces, we need to rethink how the technology is made. And I can give you maybe one more example that hopefully complements this statement, from my own research. We think of displays, as something very digital. When I say the word display, we think about a screen, maybe, a screen that shows us stuff, a TV, a phone. But if we take a look around us, there are tons of materials and organisms even in our daily life that function as some sort of information display. If we reduce it down to a physical system, there are many forms of information display. So in my research, we recently showed that not only we can sort of create displays out of many physical systems. One of the examples that we created was creating a display using soda bubbles in a carbonated beverage. So we can control and self-assemble even bubbles of a soda, such as Coca-Cola or Diet Coke, to show text, patterns, images on the surface of a glass when you pour the liquid inside a glass. So how does that change our understanding of display that is formed by using carbon dioxide bubbles instead of using digital devices? And if that is the case, can we reduce the need of always having to use a display for some of the daily tasks around us? And overall, I think for this new future, the answer, I think, is not in the traditional forms of technology, but in the overlaps and in the shared goals of several different fields that would really help us imagine new forms of technology. And really, I think the question that I ask myself and and I'm answering your question with a question, really, but what would technology look like if it grew from biological principles from the ground up? And that, I think, is the promise of bio-based techniques that's going to help us understand the world better and to also create new forms of technology by marrying different fields together. And that's kind of what we do at the program of design and technology with many different sort of fields.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is right here, take a few of the questions from the audience and then circle back to one of a collaborative questioning round in the end. One of the questions that has come up is, given the pace of AI deployment, where do you see the biggest gaps between innovation and governance today? And how can academia help bridge that divide? Anyone on the panel?
So in the UK, there's a government institute called the UK AI Safety Institute, which is actively leading discussions and commissioning research from academics in this area generally. I think there's a mix here of individual responsibility of AI engineers, because they're the ones who actually build the models, but also the need for co-creation with societal actors to ensure that, never mind if it's done right, there's also the question of, is it right to do it at all? As I was saying earlier, the difference between can and should. So harmful to privacy and data sharing. I think I did allude to the question of people generating intellectual property and not being recompensed for their work on this. That is something which I think definitely needs work on. The challenge is, as I said, internationally, if one country says you don't need to do it, then all the AI development goes to that country. If all the other ones say you do, so it is an international collaborative thing. I'm not sanguine that we're going to solve that particular one. Around privacy, I think that's worked better because that's not a new issue around data privacy. There are different countries and different spheres which have different regulations. In the European Union, we have GDPR, the General Data Protection Register, and regulation, and that is pretty strong actually, and is really well adhered to by companies in the European Union. And I think is actually probably a pretty good model for data privacy. In the sense that you have to give explicit consent to share data for purposes other than which it was first gathered, and that works pretty well. The challenge is it's in the European Union and the UK, which is not in the European Union anymore, unfortunately, and not necessarily held in lots of other jurisdictions. So, for example, the USA is very different. I'm not actually up to speed with what the regulations are in India. Perhaps someone on the perhaps you, Aditya, can enlighten me on that. But it's certainly different, I think, in different countries. And the more international we can make it, the more consistent we can make it, the more protection that people have around the world.
So it's quite true that there's a lot of conversation across privacy and governance at the moment. And I think across sectors, what we also see, while policy framework implementation is one part of it, but I kind of am surprised that no one really talks about governance at scale, which is kind of works in the works and lots to be researched on the same. But there's a lot to do with in terms of where we're talking about AI deployment, but also we are talking about ethical use of AI with human integration. I'm kind of starting to read up on that, but that's something maybe more for Arohan 4.0 once we get there. The next question is, I think, more inclined towards Professor Nikovi. What policies or cross-sector collaborations are essential to ensure that advanced connectivity doesn't just scale technology, but also scales equity?
Yes, that's an excellent question, I think. And this is something, especially a lesson we learn with 5G in terms of return on investment and equity. So this is something that I think with 6G we are looking more carefully with operators, vendors, and also governments. So in UK, for example, the Department of Science, Innovation and Technology, DSIT, who defines the sort of industrial strategy. Advanced connectivity is identified as one of the pillars of this industrial strategy, but then it's considered more as not just connectivity, say, for this traditional telecom usage, voice, data, video, but it's really to be an enabler for other sectors, including smart cities, Industry 5.0, automotive, and so on. So really, 5G was the first generation of communication networks that really had the ambition to become the connectivity infrastructure of industry and businesses. And I think this is what is really going to happen in a much larger scale when we move to 6G, because these systems are going to be designed with a view of having economic impact in a wider sector. So that means there need to be a much more global collaboration and cooperation when we define the technology. And I'm involved, for example, in a very interesting collaboration with a major automotive OEM, looking at what connectivity can bring in terms of future benefits to the automotive sector. And we have a number of organizations across the world, which brings the stakeholders from industry outside the telecom together with the telecom industry to really shape up that future roadmap.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I wanted to create a space or a platform for a shared dialogue before I get to the closing round. I'm going to pose probably more than a question, just a thought, and we could take that up as a shared dialogue amongst all of us. The thought is, are we really innovating towards the future we truly want, or merely reacting to what's technologically possible? So I'm going to repeat that again. Are we innovating towards the future we truly want, or merely reacting to what's technologically possible?
So I guess the first question, Sven, you go first.
Yeah, I'll throw something out there. Goals are very important. I think it's true for creatives and designers as well as anyone else. We have to, before we do anything, we have to define where it is we want to go. And in this sense, I think your question is an interesting one, because it really depends on the extent to which people are identifying goals which are fundamentally dependent on technology to achieve. I would argue that most people, if they're honest with themselves, are not identifying goals for themselves or for society that are fundamentally dependent on technology. So, getting to the second part of what you're asking, does this imply we're only taking advantage of that technology which we have available? I don't think the initial one of goals leads to the latter. I think we're always taking advantage of technology that's available, or choosing not to use the technology. We can't use technology that's not available. So it's really a balance of whether we're using technology or not. And I think most of the interesting design that's in the world today, coming out of the world today, is in some form taking good advantage of the technology that's available. I don't think that's necessarily a negative thing, or one that necessarily changes the goals we have set.
Over to Professor Ian. You had something to say about this.
Yes, so I had a few things. I think first of all is the question: who is the we? Right? I mean, there's the individual doing things, and then there are some, should we say, large organizations which have perhaps different goals. I think I'd say two things. One is whatever you do in tech, you always have to persuade someone to use it. And if there is no obvious reason for them to use it, they won't use it. So there has to be, I think that links to what Sven was saying, that if there isn't a clear goal that relates to what other people want to do, then it will die on the vine anyway. I think the other thing I would add also, though, is the importance of co-creation and actually bringing the end user, where you can, into the design and development process, because they will always be able to tell you much better than you can hypothesize what it is about a technology or a technique or a model or whatever it might be that they can use. I certainly remember in my own experience working with Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company, I'd worked out this wonderful new way of visualizing data, and I took it to them and showed them the results of their high throughput screening on this visualization. And they said to me, "What's going on in the bottom right-hand corner?" And it made me realize that the visualization by itself was no use unless they could go and then query what they saw and relate it to things that mattered to them. Now, it's a very trivial example, but it's something where I've been very gung-ho about all the mathematical modeling and getting the visualization right. But actually, it was first contact with a real user that made me understand the much broader context and much richer picture that was essential to make it useful to anybody. So yeah, Sven's nodding. I'm sure all the design people are absolutely all over this, but people from technology, sometimes it's a bit of a newer idea.
Yeah, I can add to this and something very interesting we might have seen very young children now, they go to the smart TV and try to scroll it. So you have seen the mobile interface in their hand and they do it with TV, but it's not working and probably could have quite disappointed. So that can spark innovation about next generation smart TVs, for example, because these end users, and this is the thing about technologies, that sometimes we know too much about the limitation of our technology, and the users, they of course they want to play with technology, they want to use it, and they want to use it in new ways, and those new ways we think, well, it's not possible. Another example from the kind of a telecom is SMS, which was not intended to be used as a text system. It was just a way to send control signals between telecom engineers, and then the users use it as a new thing, and that was the start of this platform. So I think end user involvement from early on is extremely important. And the other thing is, and this is what universities are very important, is that some level of blue sky thinking also, what cannot be done, but what can be done maybe in 20 years time, even if the technology is not there. I think that is a very important role that we as universities can play, thinking ahead. And, I work very much, for example, with 3GPP, which is a body that standards 5G and 6G, and they think, of course, within 10 years, but we like to think about 20 years ahead and so on. So that combination of end user participation, some being connected to what's happening in the industry now, but having the joy and pleasure of thinking outside the box. I think that really something to me sparks innovation and also create fun in creating new technology.
Thank you. Professor Harpreet, would you like to give in your last words? Yeah.
I would like to just maybe throw in my perspective, given that my focus is on biodesign, regenerative futures, repairing our relationships with the natural world. And I would agree with much of what Sven was mentioning about defining goals. I think a lot of times in the current technologies, we are a bit stuck with technological solutionism. We are largely sleepwalking into a future designed by someone else. And I can give you maybe a couple of examples. We have virtual reality systems that can create immersive digital worlds, yet we forget on how to enjoy our natural walks into a forest seeing the coral reefs or being able to touch the soil and not feel dirty. That says something about technology. We have AI systems that can generate art in seconds, and yet we don't have electronics that can degrade, electronics that can decompose, or materials that can easily decompose around us. We are optimizing, I believe, towards a future that is computationally possible rather than what's ecologically necessary or socially desirable in the long term. And I think we are building towards a future where we can escape into a digital realm rather than repair and regenerate the physical world that we actually physically inhabit. And I think there's a critical need to flip this paradigm. Instead of asking what can we build, I think we should ask what should we build and at what cost to the environment or to the living world. And until we put those values before the capabilities, I think we'll keep innovating ourselves into futures that serve technology rather than life itself. I mean, this is a very large question, and I think my answer is also somewhat in that realm. But I completely believe to be able to innovate in this future, we shouldn't be just thinking about the technology that is now available to us. Really, I think fundamentally, what is the kind of technology that we would like to have? What are the goals that we would like to have for ourselves?
Thank you very much. I think that kind of sums up in terms of the why towards innovation and the why towards technological progress as well. I'm going to end this session with one last round of rapid fire. And this is an interesting one. So I'll just go around the screen. I would like to start with Professor Ian. What's one emerging technology you're excited about?
Goodness me. I think explainable AI. I think that is a critical thing in terms of we've talked about co-creation, but there's also then this idea of liability and working together with an AI agent, say. Understanding the basis of the recommendations that AI makes, I think if we could do that better, that would help improve our use of it, be more skeptical about our use of it, but actually also use it in a more effective way. If it can explain how it's got to what its conclusions and how uncertain it is about them, we can then take that into account in our decision making in the future. So I think explainable AI is critical because it puts the human back into it in terms of actually being able to interact properly.
Thank you. Professor Nikovi, one policy or institutional reform that could unlock radical innovation?
Well, I think what is really important is that we need global initiatives because when it comes to AI, but also connectivity, quantum, these are technologies that impact global impact. And when it comes to AI regulations, for example, you want to have that minimum set of regulations that innovation can develop in one country can be then applied and thrive elsewhere. So when it comes to AI, particularly, we need that sort of a global set of standards, maybe not as much as in the mobile technology sphere, but something similar that gives a baseline so we are able to develop technologies in one country and then explore it elsewhere without having to go through very lengthy regulations. So I think that really helps AI flourish globally.
Thank you. Professor Sven, one big book or thinker who has most shaped your vision on the future? I think you'll have to unmute yourself, Professor Sven.
Thanks. Sorry. I love the question. I read a lot, and the book I'm going to throw out is, I think Harpreet will laugh, and he may go read it if he hasn't already, but it shows a little bit about the way I'm thinking about a lot of this. The book is called The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery. And it, aside from being an introduction to octopuses, is a very interesting and somewhat poetic consideration of the nature of alternative consciousness. The reason that I mention it for me is, I'm a fan of Harpreet, and of Harpreet's statement about engagement with nature is, I find that most of the books I'm reading now have nothing to do with the digital world. They have to do with the natural world. And I don't know why I've been led here. I would also state that in addition to a teacher, I am also a farmer, and have been lucky enough to move out of the city onto a property where I can actually be a farmer. But getting back to my book, The Soul of an Octopus, I recommend it to everyone. And aside from causing all readers to fall in love with octopuses, it, I think, will get back into some of these earlier questions about what our goals should be, how we should be setting forth, our creative processes to engage on what I would call a more natural front, a more humanistic front, if you want to put it that way.
Thank you. Moving on to Professor Harpreet. One myth about innovation or creativity that we need to debunk.
Thank you. I mean, very thought-provoking question. And the first thing that comes to mind, given that I'm also from India and our relationship to the natural world, I think, has been fractured in a way that makes me really sad. So for thousands of years, our biological materials, they were in direct connection to our practices of fabrication, medicine, food. These materials were culturally specific. They were often grown outside a house. We had a relationship with it. And now, fast forward a few years, because of the Industrial Revolution, we have now learned on how not to acknowledge the sources of where things come from. And a lot of times we learn, on what counts as beautiful, efficient, or the most usable. So the myth that we really need to debunk is, what we used to think about as natural, used to grow outside our house, what would function as a fabrication object, medicine, food, would be considered as backwards or something that is not, kind of modern, is actually pretty modern. So we really, really need to, re-reverse that myth created for some of the societies in Asia, East Asia, and Southeast Asia, that some of the things that and the practices that we've learned to do are actually used to be pretty modern. And how do we get back to some of those practices?
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. As we come to an end of the session, dear esteemed panelists, on behalf of Atlas Skilltech University and the AAROHAN 3.0 organizing team, I extend my heartfelt thanks to each one of you for your valuable time, deep insights, and thoughtful contributions to today's panel discussion on global perspective on innovation, creativity, and technology for a transformative future. Your diverse perspectives from data science and telecom to design, policy, and interdisciplinary innovation not only enriched the conversation, but also offered our global audience a truly multidimensional view of the future we are collectively building. It has been an absolute privilege to moderate this session and learn from each one of you. Thank you once again for making this dialogue impactful, inspiring, intellectually engaging. We look forward to staying connected and exploring more opportunities for collaboration in the future. Thank you very much and wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you to
you.
all the panelists.
Also to our great
you.
audience.
Yes,
you.
good questions.
Thank you.